What is up, everybody? Happy Monday morning. We are locked and loaded here on Yahoo Sports Daily. We've got Stanley Cup Finals reaction. We've got our friend Russell Dorsey stopping by to talk all things Major League Baseball. But we have to start where all eyes, not just in the New York world or the basketball world, are on, but all eyes in the sports world will be on Game 3 at Madison Square Garden tonight. Jason Fitz is out this morning, so we are blessed by the presence of Coley Harvey yet again this Monday morning. I am Caroline Fenton. Coley, let's get into it. Do you expect in Game 3 an all-timer where the Knicks can just walk into Game 3 and go up 3-0 in this series?
Caroline, I've got to be very, very careful with what I say when it comes to this series because my girlfriend is from South Texas, grew up a very big Spurs fan, been a Spurs fan since she was 8 years old, and we live here in New York City. So this has been a very chaotic couple of weeks for her. I was actually just telling one of our producers a little bit ago. Yesterday, we go to our local coffee shop, and her barista, who, mind you, the barista has been wearing a Knicks hat as long as I've known her, for months and years. When we go in yesterday, she was giving my girlfriend a hard time, and rightfully so, right? I mean, this has become a serious rivalry. So the people in New York City are all about getting their brooms out. They're all about let's seeing this thing get done in these next two games. I still want to say hold your horses, and it's not necessarily because of that connection that I have. And by the way, I'm not a Spurs fan. I'm not a Knicks fan. I'm just a here for everything fan. I'm an objective journalist watching this series, wanting to have a good series. And because I want to have a good series, I still believe in the Spurs. I feel like there's still a moment here where we're going to see them finally snap back to life. I mean, I kind of thought we were going to see that in Game 2 when they were at home. Of course, things ended on that pass off Stephon Castle's back where Wemby just kind of, I don't know what Wemby was doing. But I really thought that last game was going to be that moment. Maybe it's Game 3. At some point in time, you have to think that the Spurs are going to show up, make it a little bit more of a series, but it feels like the brooms are out. I mean, you're walking around the streets of New York. I was walking through Midtown on Saturday, and all you heard from people was Knicks in 4, Knicks in 4. And it wasn't like they were chanting it. It was as if it was a greeting, as people were just walking down the street saying to strangers, hey, Knicks in 4, hello. People don't talk to each other like that in New York City. They don't greet each other, but they are so excited about what this Knicks team can do. And, I'm intrigued by it. I'm looking forward to seeing if indeed we're going to see the brooms out. I know we're going to see them at the Garden tonight for sure. But I'm looking forward to seeing if it actually happens or if the Spurs do finally lock in and make this a little bit more of a series. And at least if they do lose this series, make it a series that we're going to be talking about for a long time.
I love that you said, people in New York don't greet each other. People in New York don't greet each other like that. They don't normally say Knicks in 4. It's just straight up, they just don't greet each other. They don't talk to each other. It's eyes laser focused on wherever you're going next. It's not like, hey, neighbor, how we doing? But all of a sudden, this city is galvanized. I'm not there. You are, so you see it, you feel it. But I'm seeing, videos on social media, hearing from friends and family members that do live in New York City. And it's like, this is as close and as tight-knit and as galvanized and as neighborly and as together as this city has felt in a very, very, very long time. And that is the Knicks effect, because this team hasn't been here in a very, very, very long time. And if you would have told me, Coley, going into this series that the Knicks were going to be up 2-0 going into Madison Square Garden, I would have said done. Like, yes, get your brooms out. Are you crazy? Are you kidding me? The Knicks were up 2-0 in San Antonio against that absolute unicorn, Victor Wembanyama, and they're going to have the passion and the fire and the noise of not just whoever can fit into Madison Square Garden, but the entirety of New York City behind them. Like, get out of here. It's done. But I'm with you. I want this game to go 6 or 7 series. This series to go 6 or 7 games. I can't believe that an NBA Finals is going to be a sweep. I cannot believe that. I cannot subscribe to that belief after we saw a 7-game Western Conference Finals. After we saw so many series in the East go to 7 games. I just can't believe that this is going to be as simple as the Knicks get their brooms out and they sweep the Spurs. that looked like one of the best teams in the NBA for a majority, if not the entirety of the season. I can't believe that, the absolute unicorn that Victor Wembanyama is, the presence that he is, the way that he levels up his play. It feels like anytime he gets disrespected, what Stephon Castle has been able to do, the way that Dylan Harper is out there playing like a veteran instead of the rookie that he is. I just can't believe that it's going to be that easy for New York. I also said that about the series with the Sixers. I also said that about their series with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I keep saying this about the Knicks. There's no way it's going to be that easy, but they keep proving me wrong. But this is the NBA Finals. This is San Antonio that beat the reigning champion, big bad Oklahoma City Thunder. I just don't believe that they're going to go down that easily. And in game 2, it's not like it was a total and complete just, put it away, lock it away. The Knicks were able to rest some starters in the fourth quarter. No, this came down to the wire. The Knicks very easily could have just flushed away the lead that they had in game 2. The Knicks very easily, if Wemby doesn't hit Stephon Castle and is back with the basketball, we could very easily be talking about this series being tied 1-1 going back to MSG. If Jalen Brunson doesn't hit that shot in the final 40 seconds, which one thing about Jalen Brunson is he's going to hit every single shot in the final 40 seconds, but there were so many things that happened in just the final, minute of game 2 that could make you believe that this series easily could be tied 1-1. Now it's not. You don't get credit for what you didn't do in life and in sports, but that's how evenly matched that game was. So as wild as it would be if the Knicks sweep this series on their path to their first championship in my lifetime and in your lifetime, I just can't believe it's going to be that easy, Coley.
I can't either. And, it's as we were coming on, I was thinking about just the city of New York and thinking about Knicks fans and what this moment has meant and what these years have all been like. And I forgot that I've got this book right here on my bookshelf, Blood in the Garden. If you haven't read it, Chris Herring, unbelievable read. But this is about essentially the Knicks through the 90s into the 2000s. And you get the sense of why this is so important to people in this city, because they had those years. They were so good throughout the 90s, kept running into Reggie Miller in the playoffs. They get to 99. They run into the Spurs as the Spurs are starting that dynasty. People are desperate for victories in this city. That's why the brooms are out. That's why the hellos, the greetings are being said with Nixon for. And there might be some blood in the garden tonight. I don't know if it's going to be there we go. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be, real blood, but there's going to be a lot of vitriol in there because the fans are really hoping to see this moment come to fruition.
No doubt, T's and P's to any Spurs fans that might be making the trip to New York City. Just don't take it personally, I guess. Just make sure your skin is nice and thick once you step off the plane at LaGuardia or JFK.
Hey, you're looking at the bodyguard of a Spurs fan for tonight, so yeah.
Good luck.
Hey, tell it to people like me too.
So the good vibes are rolling in New York. The good vibes are also rolling for Karl-Anthony Towns. He's eligible for a big extension this summer, 4 years, $272 million. In your opinion, in just 2 games in this finals, the entirety of the postseason, is that extension already signed, sealed, delivered, and done with, in your opinion?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt. Karl-Anthony Towns he's done something, as you've kind of alluded to throughout this conversation so far, is he's done something that we didn't see other post players do, honestly, all year. And certainly throughout these playoffs, he has made Victor Wembanyama look small. He has essentially used his physicality. And don't get me wrong, Wemby was facing some physical pressure defensively from OKC, from Chet Holmgren throughout the last series. But this is a different level from Cat. And it's like Cat has figured some way to just kind of stealthily use his body, use his arms, use his hands, whatever it is, to slowly ease Wembanyama out of the paint. He's just getting further and further and further away from the rim, and he's still taking shots. He's throwing up a lot of threes. Of course, he was 2 for 6 from 3 in game 2, and 11 of 21 from the field in game 2 as well. So, and Wemby scored 29 points, so he still got his numbers, but it wasn't as fluid. It wasn't as clean as his numbers have been throughout the rest of the season. The rebounding numbers are down for Wemby in this series, and a lot of that is because he has been drawn away from the basket by Cat, and Cat has been able to take advantage, and his rebound numbers are up throughout this series. So I say without a shadow of a doubt, he has been the best player of of this series, and this has been a really good Knicks team, right? Brunson had Brunson getting hurt in game one, but still going off, even though he left the court 2 times because of the knee injury and the ankle injury, and he still had a great night. But Karl Anthony Towns has been that much more impactful and necessary for the Knicks to have in this series. And for that reason alone, I think if you're a Knicks fan right now, obviously you're expecting the ring to happen. Once that ring takes place, if it does for the Knicks, I think every Knicks fan in New York would say, make Karl Anthony Towns the king of New York, give him whatever he wants. He deserves it, just off of these 2 games alone, certainly. But I would expect that by the end of the series, if indeed that ring happens. I mean, you see the numbers on the screen there, a double-double easily in both games, and also a couple of assists in each of the 2 games. So that's important as well. He's played exceptionally well throughout this.
I think if the series ended today, which it doesn't, but if it did in a fantasy world, Karl Anthony Towns would be my finals MVP. I look at Brunson and what he's done, and I acknowledge how important Jalen Brunson is to this team and how he is the king of New York. And if you want to say it's Jalen Brunson, fine. Like, you've got no issue with me. But for me, it would be Karl Anthony Towns because of what he's been able to do to Victor Wembanyama. What have we talked about since Victor Wembanyama got drafted? Who's going to stop this guy? Who's going to defend this guy? And while finals MVPs or even just defense in general isn't the most sexy thing when it comes to, what really grabs the attention of just your casual fans out there, but when we have talked so much about how you contain Victor Wembanyama, and Karl Anthony Towns has been able to do it so effectively, that is deserving of recognition, and that is MVP caliber type of play on top of the offense that Karl Anthony Towns has also been able to create. Tom Haberstroh did a great breakdown and put into context just how great Karl Anthony Towns has been in this series. He did a breakdown of all elite defenders that have defended Victor Wembanyama throughout his career. You see it right there. It's a little hard to see, but Isaiah Hartenstein has, guarded Wemby for about 180 possessions, turned him over twice. Rudy Gobert, Bam Adebayo, Evan Mobley, some of these elite defenders in the NBA. That's how many times they have defended Victor Wembanyama and how many times they've turned him over. Karl Anthony Towns, in just 124 possessions, has turned Wemby over more than all of those players combined. Giannis, Joel Embiid, AD, iHeart, Rudy Gobert. Karl Anthony Towns has turned him over more than all of those elite players combined. That blew my mind. That statistic alone. And then you just watch Karl Anthony Towns, how confident he is, how cool he is, how he seems so unflappable in the face of one of the most, if not the most intimidating players in the National Basketball Association. That we've just seen a new level of Karl Anthony Towns. We've seen a new level of physicality. We've seen a new level of confidence. We've seen this just next level of play unlocked from Karl Anthony Towns. So yes, he absolutely deserves every single penny that he has coming to him. But then that looks at the other side of things with Victor Wembanyama. How concerned are you of what we've seen from Wemby? Some very uncharacteristic mistakes that we've seen through 2 games so far.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the pressure of these finals are kind of getting to Wemby, honestly. I mean, this is, of course, the first time in his career that he's been at this stage. He did play in the Olympics, played in the gold medal game for France. Of course, the U.S. won that one on Steph Curry's magnificent shot that was above Wemby's outstretched arm. But this is this is a different moment, and you're playing in a different environment. He was playing on his home soil, so to speak, during that Olympics in Paris in 2024. He was playing certainly in his own building in games 1 and game 2 in San Antonio. But now, as the series is shifting and as you were getting close to the end of game 2, the wheels have to start spinning, and you have to know, whoa, if we lose this, now we're going to the Garden. Now we've got to face that crowd, this crowd full of people who have blood in their mouths because they're ready to see this team actually win a championship, to steal that phrase from before. But I feel like the pressure is getting to Wemby, and I think that we saw it in that last minute or so of game 2. We've seen it in all the turnovers. Karl Anthony Towns has forced 9 turnovers on Wemby, and then Wemby has another one. He has 10 turnovers himself within this entire within this entire series. That's 5 a game. That's not going to get the job done. when you are supposed to be the elite player that he is. And yes, he's still young, and he's still very early in his career. There's still a very young team around him. But this is the moment that you have to prove yourself. You are the prohibitive face of the NBA at this point. I say show it. And when it comes to showing it, that has to happen in pressure-packed moments. And it feels like right now the pressure is getting to Wemby. Again, I want to see this be a series. So I hope that he's able to channel that inner monk zen for the next couple of games, and we can get this back to an even ground.
And we all believe that Victor Wembanyama can be one of the greatest, if not the greatest players that we've ever seen in our lifetimes. But you have to do it first. You have to prove to all of us that you are a Michael, a Kobe, a LeBron, and not a Kevin Durant. No disrespect to Kevin Durant, but he has shown and proven time and time again that he is not going to be the Batman single-handedly that gets you to the promised land. Now, Victor Wembanyama still has plenty of time to prove himself. San Antonio can still win this series. Now, it feels like a really difficult task. They're going to have a really high mountain to climb. It's not over. But I almost think, I keep hearing the moment's too big for Wemby. They're not ready for the moment. I don't really subscribe to that belief, honestly. We've talked to Sam Mitchell. We talked to Tristan Thompson. We've talked to players and coaches that have been in these positions before. Richard Jefferson, same thing. And I said, I don't think it's not the moment. They just beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. If you're going to flounder or fold in any moment, it would have been them. But of course, it's the finals. And of course, the pressure is ratcheted up that much more. But I think it's less about the moment. I think it's less about the stage. And it's more about what the Knicks are doing to him and what they're doing to this team as a whole. I don't want to give credit to the pressure of the series. I want to give credit to the New York Knicks, but we will keep this conversation rolling. We have talked about the hype. We have talked about how loud it has been in New York City. So coming up next, we will get into it. Is this the biggest moment in New York City sports history?
What about the pre-fight talk? Do you feel like there should be a line?
I mean, can we look at it like comedy? I think that would be
You
awesome.
think that would be better? Even
well,
if you're
I
talking
think if
about moms and stuff.
I mean, that sucks if someone did,
yeah. Okay.
I think like building up to it, like if you and I were standing across from each other and we were going to fight, you'd probably say a bunch of stuff you really don't mean. You kind of let it go after 5 rounds in a ring with someone.
I mean, yeah, everyone loves to bring up all the pressure and tell me about the pressure. And I'm used to it. I've lived like this for quite some time now. For me, I just try to do my best to live in the moment. I wouldn't trade what I do for the world. So this is exactly where I want to be. And I just try to take it head on and enjoy every experience. I got a wonderful team and family behind me. And that's all that really matters.
What did you learn about LeBron when you were out there on the golf course with him?
I learned he's just like the rest of us out on the golf course. He loves the game. He caught the bug somewhere along the line, and just like all of us, all he wants to do is play golf. I think Bronny's probably a little ahead of him in his game, and I think that's probably messing with him a little bit. I think he can't wait to maybe even the playing field there. But yeah, I mean, he's talking about equipment. He's just like every other guy, kind of working all week to be able to play golf on the weekend.
Orlando, 1 timeout left, but the game comes down to this right here. 4 feet away from the goal line of the win. It's DeLore to throw, near side, pass caught over the wall.
That's a touchdown.
He caught it over the wall.
Touchdown from
Touchdown, Orlando. A walk-off win. As dramatic of a finish as you will ever find, and a walk-off for the Pirates.
Wow, what a finish in Orlando.
Ticket prices are absolutely insane. You see it right there. Most expensive ticket, over $100,000 for games 3 and games 4. The president will be in attendance. There is TSA and Secret Service level security in the building. It is mass hysteria in New York for game 3 of the NBA Finals. Now, I know we always have a tendency to be a prisoner of the moment. And I know how many big-time, high-level sporting events have happened in New York City. I am fully aware of that. But Coley, do you think this will be the biggest game in New York City that we've seen in recent memory?
Oh man, this is such a big question. It's a loaded question. First of all, it just seems like there's enough going on right now with this series without there having to be the extra layers and hoops and security to go through. That's a separate story for another time. But when it comes to this game, I don't want to say it's going to be the biggest game that we've seen in recent New York's sports history. I think the biggest game that we've seen in recent history that many of us, and I know there are some people who were watching this who weren't alive at the time, but right after 9/11, Game 3 of the 2001 World Series, another moment where a president was part of the championship series, so to speak. The country was still reeling from the terrorist attacks just 2 months prior. George Bush comes out, Game 3, throws out the first pitch. And even before the first pitch, not only did he know the stakes, but the Yankees and the players around him, they knew the stakes too. Derek Jeter telling George Bush, don't skip the pitch, don't throw a ball or you'll get booed at Yankee Stadium. And of course, he throws a brilliant strike right down the heart of the plate. And it was one of those moments that really seemed to kind of galvanize certainly the baseball fans in attendance, but those people who were watching from afar to say, okay, hey, there's a sense of normalcy that's returning to New York. And I think that's probably the biggest one-game sporting moment in New York, recent New York history. New York sports history, but this game is going to be up there, and it's not just that there's all the security and all the changes that are happening inside the arena, but even outside the arena, what we've seen a lot from the post games of these World Series. There's George Bush throwing out that first pitch at Yankee Stadium. What we've seen from these post game scenes just outside the Garden during games 1 and 2, it was open to the public, of course, in a controlled manner, but the NYPD helped set up a perimeter for people to celebrate, for people to just get out of their system, the excitement of this series so far. That's going to be shut down because you've got the president in attendance for Game 3. So people are going to have to disperse to other parts of the city in order to do that. I'm curious to see how the NYPD is going to handle that, because now instead of everybody congregating right outside the Garden, where exactly in Midtown are they going to end up? And you're gonna have so many police around the Garden because the president is there. Where do those police end up throughout Manhattan? Really curious to see all of that. All of that being said, it is going to be a night to remember. I mean, Friday night, as I'm on my way back home after watching the game, just hearing all the, like I said, the Knicks in 4 chants and everybody going crazy. There was already this anticipation of what Monday night, of what tonight was going to be in New York. And it's going to be memorable for a long time. But I think what's going to be most memorable is if they end up winning this game, get to Game 4. We talked about the brooms. And hey, if the brooms are out for Game 4, then if that happens, I think the Game 4, that's going to be the most memorable sports night probably ever in New York sports history, just because of what it's going to mean to the city to have secured an NBA championship and, and the parades that will follow. So I think that's going to be even more memorable than Game 3.
It has to be. It has to be up there. And look, I wasn't alive for the 1994 dual finals when the Rangers were in the Stanley Cup final and the Knicks were playing in the NBA finals. And they had to be so, strategic with, both of these teams playing in Madison Square Garden. So I know that probably was up there. If we talk about the intensity and the passion of the Knicks fan base, think about doubling that down with the Rangers also competing for a championship. So I'm sure that has to be up there. And of course, like you mentioned, the Yankees in the World Series in 2001, not even just a championship being on the line, but what that meant, just in the hearts of everyone across America. Like that just hit different. So call it a prisoner of the moment, call it recency bias, but I think this has to be up there. How starved for success this rabid and passionate fan base has been for so long. I do hate that the block parties outside of MSG have been canceled. I understand it's for everyone's safety. I get that. But the block parties have been such a staple and a mainstay in the culture of this fan base. I am sad that we're going to miss that. Everyone be careful. Everyone be safe. I know I'm getting old. When I look at photos of some of these block parties and I'm like, I'm good. I don't want any part of that. Y'all enjoy. I will, enjoy from afar. But I mean, that's just the hype. The amount of money, the cheapest ticket that I have seen is like $7,000. And there were over 500,000 people in the virtual line, like on Ticketmaster or whatever third-party ticket platform there was. Like 550,000 people waiting in a virtual line. Like that's Taylor Swift numbers. That's more than the Eras tour. The Knicks are doing a full Eras tour here just for Game 3 alone. So it absolutely, positively, it has to be up there, I think, with some of the most hyped up and some of the most passionate nights in New York City sports history. But that's not the only story that we have going on in the NBA. Of course, all eyes will be on the Garden tonight, but also all eyes will be on the results of the NBA's investigation into potential cap circumvention involving the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard. So Adam Silver says the NBA is close to wrapping up the investigation. This has been a long, ongoing thing. Kawhi Leonard and his Uncle Dennis, have been interviewed. Coley, is anyone in this scenario going to be satisfied with how all of this gets resolved?
I think that remains to be seen, because at the end of the day, the ultimate punishment rests with Commissioner Adam Silver and what he decides. Certainly, he's going to get that input from the investigative committee into whatever their findings have been after talking with Kawhi and Uncle Dennis and talking with other parties at play here. The other thing to remember, and part of the reason why it seems as if we are probably going to get to some sense of conclusion fairly soon, is just last week, the co-founder of the so-called Green Bank that the Clippers were sending funds to in order to, were doing business with in order to get more funds in Kawhi Leonard's hands. The co-founder of that business was just sent to prison for 14 years for defrauding investors. So that just concluded. And I think that's some of the reason why Adam Silver is saying, hey, we're getting closer to concluding our own investigation, because there are some steps that have been taken along the way. And when it comes to punishments, I mean, it could be a team fine of $7.5 million, a suspension for 1 year for any team personnel who was found to be willfully engaged in this violation. There could be forfeiture of draft picks as well. There's so many different levels of the punishment that could happen. I think we're going to see some combination of it, and depending on how severe, which I think it's going to be, this is a precedent moment that Silver could take right here, and depending on just how extreme his punishment is, I think there will be a lot of satisfied parties, particularly within other owners and ownership groups, who said, "Hey, we wish we could have done the same thing." So we'll see. I think it rests with Adam Silver.
I mean, I am a firm believer in the duck theory, that if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And with everything that we know about this situation, they're guilty, right? The Clippers circumvented the cap through aspiration, that they have been trying to, funnel funds to Kawhi Leonard in any way possible. And Adam Silver has set, the expectation, at least, not necessarily the precedent, but the expectation that cap circumvention is one of the big no-nos in the NBA. So if Steve Ballmer, the Clippers organization, go unpunished for this, I think that Adam Silver is setting a very dangerous and scary precedent for NBA financials in the near future. But of course, whatever we learn, we will let you know as soon as possible right here on Yahoo Sports Daily. We've been talking a lot about the good vibes in New York. That might end at MSG. Some bad vibes happening with the New York Yankees. Russell Dorsey will join us coming up next to break all of it down.
Rubido's going to have to stand in there. He's going to take a lot of big hits because they're going to give up pressure.
Fake handoff from the three, launches, got a man deep, caught, touchdown, New Mexico, Damon Street with the answer.
Let's watch, there's Rubido gets drilled and just, poorly timed on the defensive play by Odysseus. Odysseus jumps and the ball's not even there yet, but a great play though for New Mexico.
Honestly, do you think you could have continued? Do you think if there was a minute left in the fight, you would have been okay? Meaning, a minute left in the round, not the end of the round.
So if you look back at it, I got the uppercut. No, for the people that know my fights, I've been dropped multiple times in different type of fights, in championship fights. And what I do is I get back up, and no matter how much time is left on the clock, I get back up and I end up winning.
What's it mean to you to see your squad still celebrated and embraced like this 40 years later? it's pretty crazy, to really still see this, and they haven't been in the winning circle since 40 years. It's time that they put it together. 40 years of what this team that I played with, this is like the best team I played on in '86. I played on the '98 Yankees too, but this team here was a team that you just didn't want to mess with.
Felix Harper, 7 of 11 in the first half. The efficiency has been the name of the game for him so far this season. Handoff left side, down the near boards, open space, and JT Stokes in for the touchdown for Fishers. And JT Stokes get a carry off the left side on the first play from scrimmage in the second half and houses it.
The Yankees have announced that they've placed Austin Wells on the 10-day IL with cervical headaches. JC Oscar has been recalled from AAA Scranton Wilkes Barre. That's the latest on what feels like the ever-growing injury list for the New York Yankees. So joining us now is Russell Dorsey, Yahoo Sports National Major League Baseball insider. Russ, appreciate you for being here. Always lovely to get your expertise on this beautiful game of baseball. How worried should Yankees fans be about that growing injury list? You've got Giancarlo Stanton, you've got Aaron Judge, Max Fried. Now this is just the latest.
Yeah, it is a growing list of injuries in the Bronx. And I think the biggest one for me is obviously Aaron Judge. When you lose a 3-time MVP that is capable of hitting 60 home runs each and every year, that's a really big deal. And I don't think it's just that, Aaron Judge is going to be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. It's 4 to 6 weeks until he gets re-imaged on that first rib. So this is something that could end up being a 2-month, even more than 2-month absence. But I think the thing that's really important for the Yankees and Yankees fans to realize is what's most important for the New York Yankees is October. It is not right now. I think the Yankees have been one of the best teams in Major League Baseball consistently throughout the course of this first half. And I don't think that's going to change, especially in a really, really bad year for the American League. So I think the most important thing is you're going to get guys like Giancarlo Stanton back. He's working his way back from injury. You're going to get Max Fried back. You just got Garrett Cole back, and he's been really good. Cam Schlittler has been one of the best pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. And guys like Jazz Chisholm Jr. are starting to heat it up. Cody Bellinger has been really consistent for them. Ben Rice has been arguably the American League MVP, and that was including when Aaron Judge was in that lineup. So the Yankees have more than enough talent to get through this rut. But yes, you want to be able to get through the marathon that is the 162-game season healthy.
Russ, it was kind of crazy seeing that one tweet on the screen where it was listing off all the names of the players. It reminded me of when I was covering the Yankees, and there were times during that stretch where it was, they had 10 guys at various points who were out, and key players. And with these injuries, some of them are kind of longer-term injuries, particularly in the case of Aaron Judge, as you mentioned. So my question to you is, I'm curious, how do you think that this is going to impact what GM Brian Cashman might do as we get closer to the trade deadline?
I was going to say, Coley, Cash, he's the longest tenured executive in all of sports. He's not going to panic, right? I think the one thing the Yankees have done a good job of is building depth with a guy like Jose Caballero, who they acquired at last year's trade deadline, who's been one of the best players they've had on their roster. It was so good, they sent Anthony Volpe to AAA when he came off the IL earlier this season. So they've been able to acquire depth over the years. I expect that to be something that Brian Cashman does at this year's trade deadline. They're going to get impact somewhere. I imagine it's going to be in their bullpen, and maybe it's somebody else in their rotation. But I don't think Brian Cashman is the type of executive to panic. He's going to play out the next 2 months, see what the Yankees really need. You'll find out what you need in your lineup. Will you have Aaron Judge back at the deadline? Do you not have Aaron Judge back at the deadline? Maybe that's something that they need to, figure out. But I think what Brian Cashman is going to do, he's going to sit back. He's going to look at what they do over the next 60 days. He's going to see what their weaknesses, what their strengths are, and then he's going to make his moves from there. So I don't think he's going to panic, but I do think the good news for the Yankees is that they've put themselves in a really good position as we go here into the month of June and into July and as we approach the trade deadline.
And we've got plenty of time before the trade deadline, right? A lot of baseball left to be played. A lot of things can change from now until then. But at this point, who do you expect to be really aggressive as we approach the deadline?
Yeah, one team in particular that I think should be very aggressive this year is the Milwaukee Brewers. And I know people out there are probably like, the Brewers, like they're not a team that really makes splashy moves at the trade deadline, but this might be the year for them to do it. They have one of the best farm systems in all of Major League Baseball. They've consistently, for the last couple of years, been the best team in the NL Central. That is, once again, really strong this year. And they are one of the best teams in the National League and Major League Baseball as a whole. And when you look at what they've been able to do in their rotation, led by Jacob Mizorowski, who has been phenomenal this year, Chris Hook, their pitching coach, has been able to develop pitchers who aren't Jacob Mizorowski and throw 103 miles an hour. What they've been able to do with Kyle Harrison, who's on his third team, and made a couple of tweaks here and there and have turned him into one of the best pitchers in the National League. It's great. Bryce Terang has turned himself into a superstar at second base. Jackson Chourio is one of the best young players out in their outfield. And so when I look at the Milwaukee Brewers, I look at them and I say, okay, they're a more talented team this year than they were last year. And they made it to the NLCS last year before they ran into the Los Angeles Dodgers. Maybe this is the year that they say, we're going to push some of these chips into the middle of the table and say, we are one of the best teams in the National League, and we're not scared of teams like the Dodgers or the Phillies or the Atlanta Braves. And I think if the Brewers decided to do it, they definitely have the pieces to make a big splash.
We're seeing one of the hardest throwing pitchers in the game, Jacob Mizorowski, right there on the screen. Another guy who throws hard and has been throwing hard for a long, long time is Aroldis Chapman. And I know that USA Today's Bob Nightingale wrote recently that Chapman's on the trading block for the Red Sox. If the Red Sox were looking to indeed trade him, who do you think would be a good suitor to pick him up?
I look at what the Boston Red Sox have done this year, and the belief around the industry is that they're going to be a seller. And when you look at how their season has kind of gone, I can understand why you say that. You fire your longtime manager, Alex Cora. You have all these organizational changes and rifts. And so when you have a asset like Aroldis Chapman, and I wrote about this last week for Yahoo, another guy that's on their roster that I think should be moved and has done a great job for them is Wilson Contreras, their first baseman. But I think when you look at Aroldis Chapman and what he's able to do, the Red Sox might find themselves in a little bit of a bidding war, right? Where it's a seller's market for a guy like Aroldis Chapman, because what you can't teach is 100 miles an hour from the left side. And it seems like Aroldis Chapman has been pitching for the last 15 years, still doing what he's doing right now. It's honestly crazy. But I think any playoff contender as we get to the trade deadline, whether it's the Dodgers, whether it's the Yankees, whether it's the Milwaukee Brewers, whether it's the Seattle Mariners, like any team that is looking to get to October, and even more than that, be a team that competes for a World Series in October, will be looking to add an arm like an Aroldis Chapman. So they will have no shortage of suitors, but I think it's really amazing how this far into his career, Aroldis Chapman is still a priority at the trade deadline for teams.
It is crazy. And you mentioned how you think the Brewers should be active at the trade deadline. I want to go back to them for a second and touch on Jacob Mizorowski, because this is a scary man. It's not just, the speed that he has. It's also the fact that he can throw 102 plus for like 60, 70 pitches a game. It's terrifying. But there is kind of a double-edged sword there, Russ. There's, the fact that he is one of the most dangerous pitchers in the Major League Baseball, but also the fact that pitchers that throw that hard can also be a ticking time bomb. Is he a durability concern in Milwaukee?
It's an interesting question, Caroline, because I think when you see 103 flash on the gun at ballparks, you're like, what is this? We've never seen something like this from a starting pitcher before. He is the hardest throwing starting pitcher we've ever seen, at least as they've been tracking pitch velocities. Your question about is his arm a ticking time bomb is a good one, because I think we find ourselves at a time in baseball where it's not just Jacob Mizorowski. That's something that can be said for anybody that throws baseballs in Major League Baseball today. I think we're seeing the amount of elbow injuries around Major League Baseball over the last decade. Jeff Passan wrote the book, The Arm, a long time ago, and it's as true as ever before of teams looking and wondering and trying to figure out how to stop the litany of arm injuries we're seeing around the game right now. And no, I don't think Jacob Mizorowski is any more or less at risk than any pitcher right now. When you throw hard, there are going to be injury concerns. When you spin breaking balls, there are going to be injury concerns. And we're at a time in Major League Baseball where max effort, velocity, and spin are the three most important things when it comes to how teams are looking for their next great arms. And it's one of those things where as talking to teams about this very issue and talking to players about it, they look at it honestly as a occupational hazard as opposed to something that's a epidemic, even though we know that's what it is in Major League Baseball. But specifically to Jacob Mizorowski, I don't look at him as being any more or less at risk of injury than any other pitcher in baseball right now.
There's also a lot of concern for the Cubs right now as well. They were the hottest team in baseball early on, but they've been on a free fall 6-19 in their last 25. Woof. How does a team, and look, I know it's a long season, but how does a team that looked that red hot for so long suddenly go so cold?
They're the streakiest team in baseball, Caroline. You're talking about not one, but two 10-game winning streaks. They had a 15-game winning streak at Wrigley Field, and then you have a 10-game losing streak. They look like a completely different team. And I think the biggest thing has been their offense. Yeah, they've had a ton of injuries in their starting rotation. You can't minimize that. When you lose Cade Horton for the year, Justin Steele, who was already on the IL, has a setback in his rehab and gets pushed back. Matthew Boyd, who had a couple of stints on the IL to begin the season and then tears his meniscus sitting down to play with his kids. And then last night they lose Jameson Taillon. They had lost Edward Cabrera to a blister. That's 5 different guys in their rotation who have gone down with injury. And then Shota Imanaga, who was good to start the season, has not been good over his last 5 starts. But when you look at their offense, they have gone ice cold. There was a stretch during those winning streaks where they really weren't swinging the bats great, but they were getting enough run production and their pitching was solid. Now the pitching has gone away and that offense has gone away as well. They have a significant amount of their everyday players with an OPS below 700. Alex Bregman, their big-time free agent signing, has not been good. And he even talked about it last night and said, hey, I haven't been good this season. Dansby Swanson, the everyday shortstop, has gotten benched the last couple of days because of his inability to get things going offensively. Nico Horner is one of the better players in Major League Baseball and had the slump-proof approach at the plate, and he has not been able to find his swing over the last month. And so when you look at this Cubs team, they just have too many guys who are not swinging the bat right now to be able to win games. And I think the concerning thing for me when I'm looking at the Chicago Cubs is the teams that they're starting to lose to. Like the San Francisco Giants are one of the worst teams in the National League, and they came into Chicago and took 2 of 3 over the weekend. When you look at the Cubs schedule in the month of June, they should have some series to get themselves on track. I believe the Giants were one of those series, but who knows now? You're going to go into Colorado against the Rockies, who are another one of those worst teams in the National League. If you're not going to be able to come out and take 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 against teams like the Rockies and the Giants, I don't know how the Cubs can get themselves going here. But yeah, they're a streaky team. I still expect them to bounce back and play closer to their norms, those averages, the back of the baseball card, as we like to say. But it has been really wild to see how their entire lineup, outside of guys like Michael Busch and PCA as of late, haven't been able to get things going.
Yeah, they haven't been getting anything going. And something else that has been getting going is contract talks and labor negotiation talks between the MLBPA and the owners. And the owners met last week to kind of discuss where things stand in terms of those CBA negotiations. Does it appear as if the two sides are any closer to a deal here?
It's early, guys. It is really early, and this is something that is going to be a long negotiation for a lot of different reasons. And I think when you get both sides have now gotten those proposals out and they have made them very public, and I think something that I want fans who are watching right now to know about, and something that I'll talk about here over the next 6 months or so as we approach the end of the current CBA is that fans are going to be right in the middle of this thing. I think when you hear some of the rhetoric and verbiage that is being used, especially by Major League Baseball, you're going to hear things like our fans have told us that they want competitive balance. Our fans want to feel like their team has an opportunity to go out there each and every day and have a chance to not only win a ball game, but make it to the postseason, this and that. And I find that really interesting because it seems like this was something that, from a PR standpoint, the league and ownership owners wanted to get ahead of and be able to kind of win that battle of public opinion. And that's something that you're going to see a lot here as we go through the regular season. Look, you've seen the commissioner, Rob Manfred, on Pat McAfee. I think when you're talking about the biggest, one of the biggest sports shows out there, and you have the commissioner of Major League Baseball trying to get the league and owners' message out there, I think that matters. And so as fans watch what is going on, you're going to there's always going to be this back and forth. But I think what really matters is getting to a point where some of these things get checked off. Like, okay, we can figure this out. We can figure that out. And then you can get to the big things like the salary cap that I think a lot of people are really concerned about.
Ooh, that's been the great cloud that's kind of been hanging over this season. The season that's been awesome. The season that's been fun. The season of parody. But here we are talking about salary cap. You can follow him on Twitter at Russ_Dorsey1. You can also find his fabulous breakdowns of all things Major League Baseball right here on Yahoo Sports. Russ, thanks so much for your time this morning. We appreciate you as always, my friend.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Russell Dorsey hanging out with us here talking all things baseball. But coming up next, triple threat in the WNBA.
There's the toss to Kerrigan. He is destroyed at the 2-yard line.
Yeah, and a great effort by Carson Taylor, defensive end. He makes Kerrigan really have to get wide here, and then good pursuit by the rest of the defense.
Arizona down by 3. Snap to Myler. There's to give to Clark. Open space. Hurdles a defender, and he's tackled at the 17.
What's the difference between your show and their show?
I'm going to say we have the superior talkers because I'm on the show, and nobody's a better talker than me in all of professional wrestling, and that's just a fact. We just feel really special, and we feel very distinct. And I think the biggest reason why, more than anything else, is because when I'm watching All Elite Wrestling, I don't feel like I am watching somebody play a character.
My take on college football is it's always a regular season sport to me. It will always be a regular season sport. That is the beauty of college football. And we've put too much emphasis on the playoff, that taking this playoff and expanding it, you take what college football is and you dilute it. And you take that regular season and you're going to have load management in college football late in the year. Like, you don't want that. I think the people pushing for this are not the people who care about the well-being of this sport and appreciate college football for what it is.
Pretty low scoring first half with 5:38. Going to send it deep. And Puka Williams out of his own end zone. Out across the 10 with a seam. Williams on the run. Inside the 20. Breaks the tackle of the kicker, but Sutherland got just enough to trip him up. Huge return down to the 13-yard line.
And the guys are going to make fun of him because he got tackled by the kicker to stop him from scoring a touchdown.
Holy smokes.
Caitlin Clark's last 4 games, 16 points, 6 points, 17 points, 10 points. You see the shooting numbers right there, though. 3 out of the last 4 games, she has shot sub 30% from the field. And in my professional opinion, not great. So let's do a WNBA edition of what we do here on Yahoo Sports Daily. We call it Triple Threat, where we get 3 takes kind of presented to us, and we decide, are we shoot, pass, or dribbling? Shoot means that we agree with the take. We are totally buying into it. Pass means we don't agree with that. And dribble means we just need to wait and see. Not totally buying in, but also not totally out on it. So let's get into it. First one, Caitlin Clark's slump comes on the heels of a confrontation with Fever head coach Stephanie White. We know it. We saw it. It went viral all over social media, started to spark trade rumors, started to spark rumors that Stephanie White was going to get fired, which is false. That is not happening, at least not yet. But after Saturday's loss, Coley, shoot, pass, or dribble, Caitlin Clark, there is nothing to see here with her shooting slump. That nothing has kind of penetrated from the interaction with her and Stephanie White. That nothing has penetrated her or this locker room. There is nothing to see here with her last 4 games in the way that she's been shooting.
I'm gonna what I call maybe Schubel. I'm going to shoot and dribble it. Yeah, the reason why I say Schubel, I'm shooting the fact that this is not a slump that is connected to the outside stuff. I just don't believe that. I mean, she is just in a pure slump. It happens. It happens all throughout sports. It happens to basketball players all the time. I mean, you saw the 6 points that she had at Portland just a few nights ago. That was kind of the punctuation mark of this entire stretch that she's been on. But even last game against the Liberty over the weekend, she didn't get to the free throw line at all. So it's a matter of what she's doing to get the points. It's also a matter of just simply not being effective scoring the basketball. And it happens. Slumps take place. It's just part of the game. Where I'm dribbling and I kind of am in this wait and see mode is on determining if indeed fully it is the outside noise that's affecting her and the team. Right now, I'm still kind of reserved, and I'm saying, look, it's early enough in the year. They're just going through a little bit of a rough stretch. They're still kind of trying to gel for whatever this year's group is. Team chemistry comes together throughout seasons for various teams. Some teams have it right away. Other teams, it takes a little bit to kind of mesh. And so that's why I'm in a little bit of a wait and see dribble mode with Caitlin Clark here. I don't think that is what's affecting her poor scoring or her inefficient scoring, I should say. But there appears to be something possibly there, just because we did see that viral blow up on the sidelines in the huddle. We have seen a couple other cases where that's happened with not just Caitlin, but even a couple other players and Stephanie White. We have also heard from all the players who basically said, look, we had a team meeting, we hashed it out, everything's good. We just want to make sure we're on the same page about various things. And again, that's just something that happens with teams. It's just part of personalities and identities clashing. But you hope that at some point in the year, those personalities all get on the same page, whether it's off court, on court antics, whatever the case may be. And, I'm just in wait and see mode to see if that's really what the after effect is here with Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm dribbling on this because I don't believe that it was just that lone interaction and all of the opinion and all of the social media fodder that's leading to a slump. I can't believe it, especially for a player that is very used to being in the limelight. Everything she does, everything she says, everyone she hangs out with, everything she wears, every, small little, even just facial expression that she might make on the court, all of a sudden is the number one topic on First Take the next day. So I can't believe that this alone is causing her slump. Like you said, slumps happen. This is a really long season. And I do think I've noticed this year that we've had a tendency to overreact to small sample sizes in the WNBA. We're what, 10 games into the season? We're not even a quarter of the way through the WNBA season. And now all of a sudden, everyone has very strong takes and strong opinions about individual players. She's great. She sucks. This team's great. This team sucks. This coach needs to be fired. No, let's just pump the brakes a little bit. This is a brand new season and a brand new WNBA and a season where officiating has changed a lot. Let's just give these players and these coaches some grace to adjust to the new league. But I think we would be naive to say that the Caitlin Clark effect and the attention doesn't have any sort of effect on this team. We had talked to Lexi Hull just a couple of weeks ago, and she said it. When you play for the Indiana Fever, you know what you're signing up for. You know that when you play alongside Caitlin Clark, you just get you get a different amount of attention that you would get on any other team or playing with any other player in the league. So I do think, these players have phones, they have social media, they hear it. As much as they want to say that they block out the noise, they hear it. They know what's going on. So we would be naive to say that it doesn't have any effect whatsoever. So I'm dribbling here because I don't think it was just that one interaction. But I do think after a while, once you were under the microscope, that does start to rear its ugly head a little bit. But let's move on. to our next one. Mystics head coach Sidney Johnson was ejected from a 109-77 blowout loss to the Atlanta Dream on Saturday. And after the ejection, Sidney Johnson actually had to be escorted off the court by police officers working security for the game. So shoot, pass, or dribble, Sidney Johnson should face further punishment for his reaction post-ejection.
I'm going pass on this. I don't think that he should at all. It looked bad, but I think a lot of what looked bad was the after effects of everything. After he was ejected, he wanted to get his money's worth in. He was still shouting at the refs, trying to get their attention. And what really looked bad was the fact that his assistants were holding him back, his players were holding him back, and people were grabbing his shirt. That made it look like, whoa, this man is really out of control. And then, of course, you see the police officers coming onto the court, and they did so very calmly. This is when you hear police having to pull somebody away, you see the video here. They were very calm. There was nothing too extreme in that regard for me. For me, I'm passing here because I think that the ejection was enough. Hey, this is what it is. Let's move on. However, because the WNBA has been in the business of optics at times, I am curious to see what Commissioner Engelbert's going to do here. I have a feeling that there may be a single game suspension. If that happens, it's got to happen now because the Mystics play the Fever tonight. So if we are going to see more of a punishment, it would come at some point in time in the next few hours. We would find out about that. But for my take, I say we got to pass on this. Ejections happen, coaches get passionate, they get angry. I am curious if this overall conversation, because that moment there, that video did go viral over the weekend. So I'm curious if that moment still would have the same level of attention if this was, say, Stephanie White or Sandy Brondello or another coach in the league. But I think I'm saying what the elephant in the room is here. But because of Sidney Johnson, because of him being a black man in this league, I'm curious if the reaction video that we saw there, if that's what is spurring some of the conversation that we all around the league have had from this moment. But again, for me, I'm passing on this.
Yeah, I think further consequence is totally and completely unnecessary. If you haven't seen the video, go check it out because, escorted by the police. Like, that sounds really intense and really scary. It kind of felt unnecessary, really, in the moment. So many of his coaches and players, like Kiki Iriafen, even came out on the court and was like, "Stop, we're good, leave it alone, come back." So they kept trying to hold him back, and he was persistent, trying to talk to the refs. And now, look, he's a passionate coach that was trying to advocate for his players. And rightfully so. He was pissed off, and he should have been. The free throw discrepancy in that game was absolutely unacceptable. The Dream went to the line 41 times, to the Mystics just 27. The officiating in this game was inconsistent. The officiating in this game felt lopsided. Now, we are all trying to adjust, coaches, players, fans. We are all trying to adjust to the new way of officiating in the WNBA. But that does come with some growing pains. So Sidney Johnson is experiencing those growing pains, and I think officials are experiencing those growing pains as well. Maybe officials are really trying to overcorrect in officiating early on in the season, and coaches and players are trying to get used to that as well. So he was angry. He was trying to advocate for his players. I don't think that Sidney Johnson is a bad guy, an angry guy, or somebody that needs to face any more punishment. Look, he got escorted off the court. That's all that needed to happen. That I think we can just leave it right there. All right, coming up next, let's just shift our focus to the gridiron. Now, some NFL fan bases are feeling a little uncomfortable as we head into mandatory minicamp. The NFL panic meter on the other side here on Yahoo Sports Daily.
What about the pre-fight talk? Do you feel like there should be a line?
I mean, can we look at it like comedy? I think that would be awesome.
You think that would be better? Even
well,
if you're talking about moms and stuff.
I mean, that sucks if someone did,
yeah, okay.
I think, building up to it, if you and I were standing across from each other and we were going to fight, you'd probably say a bunch of stuff you really don't mean. You kind of let it go after 5 rounds in a ring with someone.
I mean, yeah, everyone loves to bring up all the pressure and tell me about the pressure. And I'm used to it. I've lived like this for quite some time now. For me, I just try to do my best to live in the moment. I wouldn't trade what I do for the world, so this is exactly where I want to be, and I just try to take it head on and enjoy every experience. I got a wonderful team and family behind me, and that's all that really matters.
What did you learn about LeBron when you were out there on the golf course with him?
I learned he's just like the rest of us out on the golf course. He loves the game. He caught the bug somewhere along the line, and just like all of us, all he wants to do is play golf. I think Bronny's probably a little ahead of him in his game, and I think that's probably messing with him a little bit. I think he can't wait to maybe even the playing field there. But yeah, I mean, he's talking about equipment. He's just like every other guy, kind of working all week to be able to play golf on the weekend.
Orlando, 1 timeout left, but the game comes down to this right here. 4 feet away from the goal line in the win. It's DeLore to throw, near side, pass caught over the wall.
That's a touchdown.
He caught it over the wall.
Touchdown from
Touchdown, Orlando. A walk-off win. As dramatic of a finish as you will ever find, and a walk-off for the Pirates.
Wow, what a finish in Orlando.
George Pickens is not with the Dallas Cowboys during their opening week of voluntary offseason practices, while Coach Brian Schottenheimer says the receiver is, quote, taking care of his business, and their communication has been good. That's the latest from Spectrum News 1 and Texas. And I almost feel like, say a different day, same story about George Pickens. So do you want to get into a little bit of the NFL panic meter here? Some of the biggest stories that have been coming out from camps in the NFL, and how worried are we? How worried should these fan bases be? I want to start there, exactly in Dallas. George Pickens is expected, by all reports, to be at mandatory minicamp. Brian Schottenheimer here does not seem too worried, but should he be? Coley, what is your panic meter on the George Pickens Cowboy situation right now?
If we're going on a scale of 1 to 10 as our panic meter, I'm somewhere in a 2 or 3. I mean, I'm just not concerned at all. It's OTAs, it's voluntary. So many players around the league every year miss the voluntary OTAs, but they're still working out on their own. And if we look deeper into the comments that Brian Schottenheimer made to reporters a couple days ago, he basically alluded to that, saying that George Pickens has been doing his own workout routine. Of course, as a teammate, you want to see your teammate in the building getting some of that work in, but they know what he's doing. They've been in communication. So, right now it's a non-starter. I think if he does not show up to next week's mandatory minicamp, which is just, a couple days of practice before the team officially breaks before training camp later this summer, then I think you get a little more concerned. Maybe my panic meter goes up to about a 5, like, okay, something might be at play here, because of course he's looking at a $100,000 fine for every day that he misses of mandatory minicamp. So, you'd expect him to be in the building. He's already said he's most likely going to be in the building. That is the expectation among Cowboys fans and the fan base, and the franchise itself. If I'm a Cowboys fan, if I'm part of the team myself, I would not really be concerned about this right now. It's once we get a little bit deeper into the summer where it's like, okay, now the radar, the antenna goes up, something is afoot here. It doesn't feel like that's the case right now. If Schottenheimer's not worried right now, then I wouldn't be if I was a Cowboys fan either.
Yeah, I'm at like a 0 here. I don't think that this is an issue really at all for George Pickens and the Cowboys. Look, he didn't show up to voluntary practices. If I'm Brian Schottenheimer, I probably don't even really want him there. Like, it's not like George Pickens is like the face of rule following and setting the standard and being a great leader in the locker room. And that's no disrespect to George Pickens. It's just what he has shown us in the entirety of his career. He doesn't have to be that if he doesn't want to be. He doesn't need to be that, but he just isn't. So if you're trying to, set the standard and, have your leaders there for some of the young guys in the league for voluntary practices, George Pickens isn't necessarily that guy. But George Pickens, he signed his franchise tag. He is under contract with the Dallas Cowboys. So if he doesn't show up to mandatory minicamp, he'll get fined. It's $100,000 a day. And if he doesn't show up for day 2, he'll get fined again. This isn't the kind of like holding out scenario that I think it may be made out to be, because he is under contract. So he is just costing himself money and causing way more problems than it probably needs to be if he doesn't show up to mandatory minicamp. So I think he shows up. I think it's going to be fine. I think this is all going to be kind of water under the bridge once we get into minicamp. And then the George Pickens, where will he go next saga will begin toward the end of the season. So I'm like a 0 here. But what about this? Cardinals quarterback Jacoby Brissett also plans to report to mandatory minicamp this week after missing voluntary workouts over his contract. Brissett wants a raise from his $4.9 million salary. What's your panic meter here with Jacoby Brissett and the Arizona Cardinals?
Because there's a little bit of drama in Arizona with this, I would put my panic meter closer to a 7 right now, just because there's already this team that's not expected to do well, and now your starting quarterback is showing signs that he's not happy with his deal. And I would say that I would be well within my rights if I was him to also express that concern, because $4.9 million, when you look at some of the other quarterbacks in the league who are even on some of these shorter term deals and who are kind of considered more mid-tier quarterbacks, and I know Jacoby Brissett is a journeyman starter at this point of his career, still barely, not even getting $5 million a year for him. I would certainly be raising my hand saying it's time for you to pay me a little bit more, because clearly you need a quarterback. I have value to you. And so, yeah, if I'm a Cardinals fan, I'm a little more panicked just because, okay, what happens if there is a situation where this doesn't get handled once we get a little closer to the season? Now you're really looking around and you're saying, well, where are we going from here? This is clearly a franchise that's going to be playing for a top 5, top 10 pick anyway when it comes to this season. So maybe the panic meter really should be low anyway, because there's nothing really to expect out of this whole scenario for the Cardinals. But I would be a little concerned. Again, he's going to show up to minicamp this week. So it feels like for now, because of the stage of the year that we're on, the point in the calendar we're in, it is probably kind of water under the bridge. Jacoby Brissett is very much a professional, so he's going to go about his job and do his job the best he can. But I would be a little concerned if we're in a similar state at the start of training camp, in a couple of months. If that's the case, then my panic level is probably right in that 7 range.
I think my panic level would be higher if anyone thought that the Cardinals even had a punching chance to do anything meaningful this year. But I don't think anyone does. With that roster, how young they are, how it feels like they're still probably at least an offseason away from building up enough talent to be competitive. And, oh yeah, by the way, you're in a division with the 49ers and the Rams and the reigning Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. So I think if you're the Cardinals, and if you're a Cardinals fan, you're like, let's just get through this season, lose as many games as we possibly can, and maybe we are just going to tank for Arch next season, because I don't think any of us really think that Jacoby Brissett is going to be the longtime starter in Arizona. I don't think any of us really think that Carson Beck is going to be the longtime starter in Arizona. So look, Jacoby Brissett's making $5 million a year. You're getting him on the big time cheap. Even if you double what he is making, you're still getting him on the big time cheap. Most expensive contract that they have, at least by AAV, Josh Sweat and Trey McBride making $20 million each. They have $35 million in cap space. Like, if the Cardinals want to give Jacoby Brissett a bit of a pay bump just to make him feel appreciated and wanted by the organization, it's something that they absolutely can do. But Jacoby Brissett, I do not believe, is in the long-term plan for the Arizona Cardinals. Like, if you're a Cardinals fan, your panic meter should be off the charts just because of the division that you play in. I think that's your biggest issue, far more than maybe it is the situation with Jacoby Brissett. But with what he did last season for the Cardinals, I think he does deserve at least a little bit of a bump. Throw the guy a bone here. You've got the space, you've got the money, you've got plenty of players on rookie contracts. The Arizona Cardinals can do it. But the quarterback disputes and quarterback contracts don't end in Arizona. Baker Mayfield told reporters this past weekend that he and the Bucs are, quote, not anywhere close to signing a new deal and that he won't negotiate once training camp begins. What is your panic meter for the Bucs and Baker Mayfield?
My panic meter here, Caroline, is at about a 5. It's right in the middle, only because we're still so far away from training camp. And if he's already set that as his deadline, there's still plenty of time, plenty of runway to get a deal done. But I also understand Baker Mayfield's sense of urgency with this. He feels as if he has poured his blood, sweat, and tears into this franchise these last couple of seasons. He feels like he finally has a home. You know, he and his wife and his kids feel like they are very much a part of that community. I see this is a quote tweet from Schefter quoting Jenna Lane's story, one of my good friends. You know, and I know in Jenna's story, she mentioned the way that Baker gives back to the community there, the charities that they've started in his short time in Tampa Bay. So it really feels like home. He feels a sense of urgency, as I said, because he wants to stay here, and he feels like it's due to him to be able to stay here. He just wants the almost said the Cardinals. He wants the Buccaneers to just play a ball with them a little bit better when it comes to this deal, because he feels like his contract, he's right there in the middle of the tiers of quarterback pay. You know, I'm not necessarily saying that Baker Mayfield's in the upper echelon, the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, and I don't necessarily think that he would say that, hey, that's what I'm worth, but he certainly thinks that he's way worth 33 million or 36 million a year, somewhere in there, that he's already getting right now. As you see on the screen, he's seeking $65 million. So he is looking to certainly get bumped up. My panic meter is at a 5, just because, like I said, we've got plenty of time for this to be hashed out. I don't think there's anything for Bucs fans to be concerned about. You know, he has already said, look, when it comes to training camp, I'm still going to be there. If we don't get a deal done, it's, you know, we're pushing that to the side. I'm focusing on the season. And then after the season, we'll review these talks. And I think at that point, especially if he plays well again, he played very well last year. Of course, he got hurt, had that shoulder injury late in the year that really kind of had the wheels fall off of things for the Bucs. They just weren't the same team after he got hurt there around week 14. But yeah, if he's able to play at a similar level this year, but for much longer, and get his team into the postseason and all these good things, then I think that your panic meter has to rise post this season if there is no sense of a contract for the Bucs.
Yeah, I think my panic meter is a little bit higher. I'm like a 6 or a 7 here, because 2026 is the final year of Baker Mayfield's deal. So do you want to roll the dice and let him hit free agency and take a free agency tour? If I'm Tampa Bay, probably not, because I would think that the market is fairly robust for a guy like Baker Mayfield. Do you think anyone in Minnesota wouldn't sign up for what Baker Mayfield can give them? You don't think Arizona would be interested in Baker Mayfield? Possibly even Indianapolis interested in Baker Mayfield? All of these teams that feel like they probably could upgrade at the quarterback position. Now, Arizona will probably be within a swinging chance of getting a quarterback in next year's draft, but there are plenty of teams that will be out of the realm of getting one of these top quarterbacks in the upcoming draft, but could upgrade at the quarterback position. And I think Baker Mayfield could be, you know, could fill one of those holes. So I'm Tampa Bay, and if you want to hold on to Baker Mayfield, you're going to want to get that deal done before the end of the season, before he hits free agency. Baker Mayfield's not worth $65 million a year. I think we can all agree that, right? I love Baker. He had an MVP caliber season in 2024. I love to see the renaissance of Baker Mayfield's career, but he is not an elite upper echelon quarterback in this league. $65 million a year is elite upper echelon kind of money. But I don't really think that matters, Coley, because when it comes down to quarterback deals or just deals in general, it's not what you're worth. It's, are you the next one up? So we've seen, you know, Trevor Lawrence make significantly more money than Patrick Mahomes at one point in their careers, not because he was better than Patrick Mahomes, but because he was just the next quarterback deal up. So Tampa Bay has to ask themselves, are we willing to pay $65 million a year to a quarterback that is really good, but not elite? And if the answer to that is no, well, then what's your path to another quarterback? Are you willing to enter the sea of the unknown and, you know, trying to find your next quarterback? And there is no guarantee that you're going to be able to draft one. And there is no guarantee that you're going to get the same amount of, if not more, production from this mystery quarterback than what you're getting from Baker Mayfield. So are you satisfied with what you're getting from Baker? And if the answer is yes, you got to pay the man.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to get paid when we break it down that way.
Yes. 65 mil is right. But let's get one more in here before we break. The Chicago Bears are one step closer to moving out of Chicago. The Indiana Bears may be imminent. The board of directors for the team advanced plans to build a new stadium in Hammond, Indiana. If you're a Bears fan, if you live in the Chicago area, what's your panic meter?
Well, first of all, we've got to define Chicagoland area in this case, because if you're living in Harvey or Dalton or Calumet or Homewood, I mean, you're loving this. Your panic meter is at a 1 or a 0 because now the new stadium is like 10, 15 minutes away from you. But if you live inside the city limits or the northwest suburbs or the northern suburbs or the western suburbs, where a lot of Bears fans do, your panic meter is probably around an 8, 9, maybe even all the way up to 10, because this doesn't, it just geographically, and for so many reasons, it doesn't make sense. I understand what the Bears are doing in terms of trying to build like what Wrigleyville has started to become around Wrigley Field, where you've got your own district, what the Braves have at Truist Park in Atlanta. The Bears are trying to do that same thing in Hammond. You don't really have the space at Soldier Field to do that, but Soldier Field is what Bears fans for many, many decades have known. The vast majority of Bears fans who are alive today only really know Soldier Field. It's easy to get to. It's convenient by CTA train, the elevated train, by the Metro train, by car, by so many different modes of transportation. It is very convenient to get to Soldier Field, but it is going to be so hard unless you live in specific places to get to this stadium here. And again, it is in Indiana, even though it's just right over the border. It's still in Indiana. It's not in Illinois. I used to live in Chicago. I lived very, very close to Soldier Field. I used to love it when it was a Sunday Sunday afternoon game, and just seeing the atmosphere around that area. And I maybe I'm just biased, and I'm gonna feel like I would miss that if I lived in that space now, because there's nothing like that game day atmosphere around Soldier Field, and being around Grant Park, and being by the lake, and having the skyline right behind the stadium. You don't get any of that when you're in Hammond, Indiana.
No. And look, the heart says don't do it, but the finances say get to Hammond, Indiana. And unfortunately, in this business, finances trump the warm fuzzies. All right, coming up next, we'll stick with the NFL and get into some NFL trade news. Is there a world where the Rams actually lose the Myles Garrett trade?
Rubido's going to have to stand in there. He's going to take a lot of big hits because they're going to give up pressure.
Fake handoff from the 3, launches, got a man deep, caught, touchdown, New Mexico, Damon Street with the answer.
Let's watch, there's Rubido gets drilled and just, poorly timed on the defensive play by or Decius. Decius jumps and the ball's not even there yet, but a great play though for New Mexico.
Honestly, do you think you could have continued? Do you think if there was a minute left in the fight, you would have been okay? Meaning, sorry, a minute left in the round, not the end of the round.
So if you look back at it, I got the uppercut. Well, for the people that know my fights, I've been dropped multiple times in different type of fights, in championship fights. And what I do is I get back up, and no matter how much time is left on the clock, I get back up and I end up winning.
What's it mean to you to see your squad still celebrated and embraced like this 40 years later?
It's pretty crazy, to really still see this, and they haven't been in the winning circle since 40 years. It's time that they put it together. 40 years of what this team that I played with, this is like the best team I played on in '86. I played on the '98 Yankees too, but this team here was a team that you just didn't want to mess with.
Felix Harper, 7 of 11 in the first half. The efficiency has been the name of the game for him so far this season. Handoff left side, down the near boards, open space, and JT Stokes in for the touchdown for Fishers. And JT Stokes get a carry off the left side on the first play from scrimmage in the second half and houses it.
Browns GM Andrew Berry got advice from Thunder GM Sam Presti, love that synergy there, about what the return should be for Myles Garrett per Albert Breer. So, Coley, when we're talking about this Myles Garrett Jared Verse trade, Fitz and I talked about it a lot. We thought it was kind of a win-win for both of these sides. The Rams are in a win-now window, and they get a guy that helps them win right now. The Browns are not in a win now window. They want to get younger, so they got younger with the former defensive rookie of the year. But is there a world? Because when we talk about Sam Presti, we talk about that blockbuster trade of Paul George getting SGA in return, and that is what put them right into this championship window. A huge reason why they won a championship last season. Is there a world where the Myles Garrett Jared Verse trade in a world? Is there a world where the Myles Garrett Jared Verse trade looks reminiscent of the SGA Paul George trade, where the Browns end up being championship contenders for years to come?
I don't know. I don't have that sense of this right now, and a lot of that is because we knew who Paul George was. We didn't know very much about SGA at that time, and of course, this has paid off handsomely for the Thunder. They have certainly shot themselves into the stratosphere of what the NBA is by having pulled off this trade and getting SGA from LA. But when it comes to this situation, we kind of have known now at this stage that Jared Verse is going to be pretty legit. He's going to end up having a really, really good career. Is he going to have a Myles Garrett career? Most likely not. I think that Myles Garrett right now is a little bit of a unicorn of himself. There's not going to be another set of 20, 25, 26 sack type seasons, to come in the near future. We're not going to see defensive ends go on the same string of sack records that we've seen Myles Garrett have. That being said, this Rams team was already a possible Super Bowl team this past year. And in some ways, you could argue that they could have gotten all the way to the final game had it not been for, as we were just talking about, Chicago and Caleb Williams. But I think that this is a trade that certainly makes the Rams that much better, makes them even more of a Super Bowl contender this year, especially with a lot of the pieces that they're bringing back. But I don't know if I'm ready to quite put it on the same apples to apples comparison as to that trade for SGA all those years ago.
I feel like we keep, as a sports society, we keep trying to chase the high of the SGA Paul George trade, of how advantageous it obviously turned out for the Thunder, how, in hindsight, idiotic it felt like for the Clippers to make that kind of trade. I feel like we keep searching for that. Or maybe that's just an incredibly unique trade, and maybe it's just kind of in its own little corner by itself. Like, I keep trying to find the same, the Vikings trading Stephon Diggs and drafting Justin Jefferson. Like, whenever the Titans traded A.J. Brown on draft night and drafted Treylon Burks, I was like, this is their version of Stephon Diggs for Justin Jefferson. This is brilliant. And then I don't even think Treylon Burks is in the league anymore. And A.J. Brown went to 2 Super Bowls and won one with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think we keep trying to fit maybe square pegs in round holes and finding comparisons for certain trades and keep trying to fast forward to how we think this might pan out. Whereas I think it could just be as simple as, this is a really smart and really great trade for the Rams. This is a massive swing for a team that is not scared of taking massive swings. And it's going to pay off in the short term far more than it's going to pay off in the long term. Just given the age of the quarterback and given the age of Myles Garrett, they're in a win now window, and they're looking to capitalize on that. The Rams are a really well-run, smartly run organization as well.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, and then the win also for the Browns is, you don't really know what your future is in terms of your quarterback and what the offense is going to look like, whether it's this year or the next couple of years, but your defense is still going to be good. It might not be, again, Myles Garrett is just in another stratosphere from anybody else right now, but Jared Verse is very, very good.
Right. It could be just, and that might not be very sexy because it's sexy to talk about one team outsmarting another team. It might just be a win-win scenario for both of these sides. Let's get another one in here. I've also heard some trade rumors happening in Pittsburgh. Mike Florio says a TJ Watt trade would net the Steelers at least a first-round pick, maybe and then some. But Steelers fans seem very divided on the idea of trading TJ Watt. Should the Steelers, in your opinion, entertain a trade offer? And where do you think that trade offer could come from?
Man, I can't really see this happening. Not right now. TJ Watt has been such a mainstay in this franchise. It feels like to me, just feels like he fits the mold of what the Steelers are. He fits the mold of what that Steeler defensive identity is. He fits the mold of, I just think about JJ, right? I didn't see JJ playing for anybody other than Texans, and I don't think he did either. And so that's why we see JJ Watt on television now talking about football instead of playing it. I feel like TJ Watt is similarly cut in Pittsburgh. It feels like the fan base I can imagine the fan base is so divided on this because there are so many Steelers diehards who feel like he has the identity of what their defense should be. He hasn't been quite the same player, I know, in recent years in terms of the sack numbers. He just had 7 sacks last year, and just 7 sacks is still a lot of sacks. But he had 7 sacks as opposed to the 19 that he had about 3 years ago. And then a couple of years before that, he had 22 and a half in that single season. So he's not having the same level of production that way. He's also been dealing with a couple of injuries, of course, the last couple of years. So there is reason to maybe move on from him. Especially given the state of whatever the quarterback situation may be post Aaron Rodgers after this season, or even if Aaron Rodgers, God forbid, if he were to get injured this year, where do you go if you're the Steelers? So I think if you're entertaining this thought, you're entertaining the thought that you're about to be in rebuild mode for however long that could be, 2-3 years, whatever that could look like. And certainly those draft picks, especially if it's a first-round pick with the right team, it would have to be a team who is most likely going to end up drafting early next year, then it makes sense. But those teams that are probably going to be drafting early next year, they're also going to be looking for a quarterback. And so it just doesn't feel like it makes sense to me right now to try to trade off this guy. I think he's too valuable to the team, and he's been too much of a popular player there in Pittsburgh that I think it would really send the fan base into a little bit of a fray.
I would. And my initial thought was, why bring back Aaron Rodgers if you're just going to trade TJ Watt? Because I don't think you bring back Aaron Rodgers and be okay with a 7-10 season and missing out on the playoffs. No, you bring back Aaron Rodgers to win as many games as you possibly can, especially in an AFC North that feels incredibly wide open. But that was probably their plan, the Steelers' plan. Bring back Aaron Rodgers, run this back one more time. But you know what they say, Coley? Everybody's got a plan until they get smacked in the mouth. And maybe a TJ Watt trade wasn't even in the realm of possibility until now. TJ Watt's 31 years old. He's not getting any younger. So if you have a first-round pick and then some, maybe a first and a second, first and a young player, kind of like the Jared Verse trade, I think if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have to take calls on that. You have to listen to that. Because after this year, I think anything is on the table for the Steelers. They will be transitioning into a new era after this year. They have to. It is time. Every team, even the Pittsburgh Steelers, has to eat their vegetables and go through at least a little bit of a rebuild and a retool every once in a while. So if you get more picks in your treasure trove to help you do that with TJ Watt, I think you at least have to listen. I don't think it's as crazy as maybe my first initial reaction was to it. We got plenty more to touch on in the NFL, not just the rest of the show, but throughout the rest of the week. But let's go to a different kind of football. The all-new 2026 Soccer Pick'em is here just in time for the world's biggest soccer tournament. Make picks each round, earn points, and climb the leaderboard. You can play solo, create a private group with friends, join a public group to play with other fans, or you can even join in on the Yahoo Sports group to see if you can beat us. Feel like you can probably beat me. I feel pretty good about that. So join at yahoofantasy.com/soccerpick'em. A little bit of breaking news here. Brendan Sorsby has been granted a preliminary injunction against the NCAA, and he is eligible for the 2026 season. We'll get more into that later on in the show. But coming up next, we got one of the wildest Stanley Cup Finals games I have ever seen in Game 3. Sarah Sivian joins us to break it all down. Coming up next.
Rubido's going to have to stand in there. He's going to take a lot of big hits because they're going to give up pressure.
Fake handoff from the 3, launches, got a man deep, caught, touchdown, New Mexico, Demond Street with the answer.
watch, there's Rubido gets drilled and just, I mean, poorly timed on the defensive play by I mean, or Decius. Decius jumps and the ball's not even there yet, but a great play though for New Mexico.
Honestly, do you think you could have continued? Do you think if there was a minute left in the fight, you would have been okay? Meaning, sorry, a minute left in the round, not the end of the round.
So if you look back at it, I got the uppercut. Well, if for the people that know my fights, I've been dropped multiple times in different type of fights, in championship fights. And what I do is I get back up, and no matter how much time is left on the clock, I get back up and I end up winning.
What's it mean to you to see your squad still celebrated and embraced like this 40 years later?
It's pretty crazy, to really still see this, and they haven't been in the winning circle since 40 years. It's time that they put it together. 40 years of what this team that I played with, this is like the best team I played on in '86. I played on the '98 Yankees too, but this team here was a team that you just didn't want to mess with.
Felix Harper, 7 of 11 in the first half. The efficiency has been the name of the game for him so far this season. Handoff left side, down the near boards, open space, and JT Stokes in for the touchdown for Fishers. And JT Stokes get a carry off the left side on the first play from scrimmage in the second half and houses it.
Some breaking news in college football. A judge in district court in Lubbock County, Texas, has granted the injunction requested by Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby. That's a whole lot of legal jargon to say he can play for the 2026 season. Brendan Sorsby will be Texas Tech's quarterback in 2026. Now, part of this is also that Brendan Sorsby has to serve a 2-game suspension. Those first 2 games for Texas Tech are against Abilene Christian and then on the road at Oregon State. Team that won 2 games last year. Feels like Texas Tech should be able to win those 2 games even without Brendan Sorsby. But remember, he was at the center of an NCAA investigation that found him betting thousands and thousands of times, even including on Indiana football when he was on the roster at Indiana. Coley, what is your initial reaction to this here that Brendan Sorsby will be eligible in 2026?
Well, I know that a lot of this is still breaking and it's fast moving, but I am seeing in our Yahoo.com story is that the NCAA is likely to appeal this ruling. So it might not quite be all over with just yet. We will have to see if indeed it is. But for right now, yeah, this is positive news for Sorsby. And it appears that his attorneys actually presented this to the judge as a potential solution to this situation. Say, hey, look, he'll serve a suspension. He'll sit out for a little bit. It could be multiple games, but allow him to play this year in the NCAA. And so if you're Sorsby and his legal team, you have to count this as a win right now because you got what you wanted. And yes, to your point about the 2 teams that Texas Tech is playing this year to start the year, those are definitely those should be wins in the win column for Texas Tech without Sorsby even on the field. But this is a serious situation. I fear that maybe this is going to set up some level of precedent for athletes who do get in trouble for betting on their own team's games. To the point that, that maybe there's an athlete out there that says, hey, if I'm only going to serve 2 games and it's 2 games early in the season, if you're a football player, for example, then maybe you feel like I could get away with this. I could still place this bet, especially if you're not a star. I think this is the other thing in this case. This is the starting quarterback at a major college who is getting this type of treatment. So what if you're that backup on 4th string backup who's not supposed to play anyway? Maybe you do feel like you can gamble and the risk isn't as great to you. And of course, this is going to be so much more of an issue as we move forward because of the connection to sports betting, even in college sports. It just feels like we're setting ourselves up for a very, very bad road that we're going down when it comes to gambling, particularly with amateur athletes this way, especially if we want to consider college athletes still to be amateurs. But my biggest takeaway is very good news for Sorsby and his legal team. He'll get a chance to play this year.
I think this is a win, of course, for Brendan Sorsby and his legal team, like you said. But I think this is a loss for college football. Hunter Deckers, just a couple of years ago, when he was at Iowa State, was banned from the NCAA for placing bets on his own team, which is the exact thing that investigations found Brendan Sorsby guilty of. You cannot bet on your own team. It is clear as day, written in the NCAA rulebook. So, look, I have grace for a young man who clearly has a gambling addiction, and I'm glad that he seeked help for that. I hope that he's in recovery, and I hope that he is able to move past all of this and live a very happy and healthy life. But he broke the rules. So while I have grace and while I'm rooting for him as a person and as an individual and as a player, when you do the crime, you have to do the time. And we're setting a very, very scary and dangerous precedent in the NCAA if somebody very clearly and blatantly breaks the rules, but they can come back and earn millions and millions and millions of dollars, which is what Brendan Sorsby is doing at Texas Tech next year. And all you have to do is get a slap on the wrist and miss 2 games. I think that's unacceptable. You are sending a message to everyone in college football that you can break the rules and it's just fine as long as you have enough money on your side to get you through. Now, again, this is not an anti-Texas Tech sentiment. This is not an anti-Brendan Sorsby sentiment. But I think that we're in a really dangerous territory with gambling in sports and gambling in college football. And the NCAA is showing here that they clearly have no power when it comes to enforcing NCAA rules. And when we're living in a lawless world of college football, it just got that much just less integrity here in this game. So I think this is a scary path that we're going down in college football.
Yeah, it is. I think you said everything about that perfectly. I'm really curious to see what happens though with this appeal, because I have to imagine that the people inside the NCAA offices today in Indianapolis, they're looking at this and they're saying that we have to right this wrong, because to your point, the rules are the rules. The rules have been specified by the NCAA as the governing body of college sports, that players are not supposed to be able to do this, and they are not supposed to be able to play. This is also a district court judge in Lubbock. Is that what we read on the tweet? So that also kind of plays into this as well. I'm sure the NCAA is going to do everything that it can to advance it past this level to ensure that, that this isn't setting up a scenario where you have other athletes who feel as if, maybe they could get away with running afoul of those rules, whether they have a gambling addiction or not. The rules are the rules, to the point that you just said.
And where does it stop with breaking the rules? Where does it stop with whether it's an athletic department, a coach, an individual player that are breaking certain rules? Like, it might not just take away the gambling aspect of it. At what point are rules just not going to be enforced? I keep hearing coaches and athletic directors and conference commissioners begging and pleading for guidelines and begging and pleading for a cap. And, we just saw the Save College Sports Act, drafted. And there's a lot of debate about that, of how can we save college sports? How can we make sure that there's this quote unquote sustainable model for college sports? I keep hearing everyone begging and pleading for at least a governing body, some rules, a rule book for everyone to play by. Everyone keeps asking for rules, but nobody is following the rules.
It feels like this is what college football has been for decades at this point, right?
Yes.
It's just taking on different forms.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We're seeing a statement here from Sorsby attorney, quote, "This is just a result. He will continue in treatment, devote himself to his team and educating others about the dangers of gambling addiction. There is no damage to the competitive integrity of NCAA games." I hope for Brendan Sorsby's sake that is true, that he will continue through treatment. He can educate others, that he will be better. The people around him will be better because of this. I just vehemently disagree with the final part of that statement, that this does no damage to the competitive integrity of NCAA games. I do not believe in that, Coley.
No, 100% does. And especially when you're a player at the position that he plays, there is no person on the field who dictates more of the action of what goes on a game than the quarterback of a football team. I mean, he's able to change plays at the line. He's able to, if he's trying to blow a game, there's ways he can blow a game. If he feels like he can get to a receiver, whatever the case is that he has to do to make his team a little more successful, he can figure a way around that. But it's more the blowing the games aspect of that, where a quarterback can do that more than virtually anybody else on the field, just because they see so much of the action. They dictate so much of the action. The action revolves around the man with the football, and the man who has the football more than anybody else is the quarterback. So yes, to me, it does taint the integrity of the game. It taints the integrity of games that he was part of in the past, before he even got to Texas Tech. Now, of course, now he's at Texas Tech, and this is where he is transferred to hope that his career will take off to the point that he can get into the NFL. I'm also curious to see how this will follow him into the next level, because we know what the NFL continues to say, at least, about betting on its game and betting in its sport, and how it wants its athletes to treat gambling. It'll be interesting to see, if he ends up having a great year, if this injunction does indeed last, and he ends up having a great year after that 2-game suspension. Our team's going to feel like they can just pick him up. It's business as usual. Or will there be a little hesitance, a little sense of pause, because, well, he had this questionable decision-making for X number of years of his life due to this gambling addiction? I think that's another question that it'll be interesting to see how that gets answered in the next year or so.
Yeah,
wow,
Todd Monken was asked about it. The statement here from the NCAA, this was put out by our very own Ross Dellinger, who has been all over this the past couple of weeks, says the NCAA strongly disagrees with the court's ruling in Sorsby's case and is deeply concerned about the damaging, far-reaching, and broadly destabilizing ramifications of this outcome, which undermines and corrupts the integrity of sports. The NCAA is committed to supporting student-athlete and mental health, but must continue to aggressively defend against actions that defraud college athletics and threaten competitive integrity, such as betting on one's own sport. I don't want to agree with the NCAA, okay? It's a scary day when you and the NCAA are in total and complete lockstep, but I am very much so on the NCAA's side here. And we talked to our very own Stephen Godfrey about this when this first started to come to light. And there is no more brilliant college football brain in the world, I think, than Stephen Godfrey. He does such a wonderful job covering this sport and adding nuance to this sport. And I do want to, bring up some of his points just so we can kind of put it out there and show the other side. Godfrey talked about how what he did wager were really small amounts. Like, we're not talking about thousands and thousands of dollars on Indiana. We're talking about $5 and $10 bets here and there. He mentioned how, Sorsby was not the starting quarterback at Indiana when he made those bets. He was, on the bench as a backup on the sidelines. I do think that those are all important aspects and important points with all of this, that he wasn't the starting quarterback, that he didn't have $100,000 on the line, that he wasn't throwing picks left and right because he bet against his team. He actually bet on his team. They always say bet on yourself, and he took that literally. I don't really care about any of that, to be honest with you. I don't care if it was a $10 bet or a $10,000 bet. I don't care if you're the fourth quarterback on the depth chart, if you're the starting quarterback. I don't care about the specifics of all of these things. While they might be important in adding nuance and understanding the story of Brendan Sorsby, the rule is pretty black and white to me. It's not gray. There's not room for interpretation here. It's not, you can bet on your team if you only place a $5 bet. It's, you can't do it. Like, I don't care if it's a penny, and I don't care if it's $1 million. You cannot do it. It is the actual action of betting on your team. And the specifics of it all, just when it comes to Brendan Sorsby's eligibility, when it comes to the question of did you break the rules or not, those things don't really matter to me, how much it was, where he was, and how much playing time he got, Coley.
Yeah, well, it also speaks to ethics. It feels as if ethics in certain parts of society, maybe I sound like the old guy that I am now when I say this, but it feels like ethics have been eroded in certain ways. And this is one of those, that's all the context that is necessary to be telling this story in totality in terms of what he actually bet, when he bet, how it went. But it does speak to the ethical nature of somebody playing the game. You're not allowed to do it, and it should feel wrong to do it. Even if it is a $5 or $10 bet, it should feel wrong. I mean, people ask me all the time, do I play fantasy sports? And throughout my career, I have covered so many different teams and so many different sports where I kind of feel like I have insider information, and I don't play fantasy sports. I haven't played fantasy. I did early in my career, but it's been many years ago. I just have felt wrong about that. And to me, this isn't, it's not an apples comparison, but it is similar in the fact that you are helping dictate what's going on in the game plan. Even if you're the third or fourth string backup, you're seeing what your team is doing week to week. You know what your team is going to do that will be either good in the game coming up or bad in the game coming up. So you're still such a crucial part of the game plan and the game itself. It doesn't matter what you're betting. Wrong is wrong. And I think that in general, society-wise, in sports, we've lost some sense of that. And this is one of these moments where we can highlight that. And I do hope that for Brendan's sake, that he has certainly learned from this, that he's going to move on positively from this. But I do think that it speaks a little bit to that. So I think you and I are in 100% lockstep agreement on this, Caroline.
Yeah. And, I think about it in the NBA. How many times do we hear, oh, refs are fixing games. Oh, the fix is in. Oh, the script is in. We hear it NBA games, NFL games. We hear it all the time. So that's now, I think, going to be a narrative that exists around Brendan Sorsby. Whether you think that is right or wrong or indifferent, if you agree with that or not, I do think that will be an element. Every time Brendan Sorsby throws an interception, every time an injury report may come out, there will be questions of, is Brendan Sorsby throwing this game? Is Brendan Sorsby fixing this game? Now, there might not be zero, merit to that, because I don't think Brendan Sorsby, just knowing him as the competitor and the quarterback that he is, I don't think that he would do that. But that will be a conversation, and that will be a distraction, and that does take away from the integrity of the game of college football. And I think right now, maintaining the integrity of college football is of utmost importance for fans, conference commissioners, athletic directors, all the like. So if you're just tuning in, Brendan Sorsby was granted an injunction from the NCAA's initial ruling that he was not eligible for the 2026 season. He now will be, at least where it stands right now. I don't think this is the end of this. I do believe the NCAA will continue to push back, but where it stands right now, Brendan Sorsby will be eligible for the 2026 season and will be given a 2-game suspension at the beginning of the year. He'll be out for weeks 1 and 2. As the latest on the Brendan Sorsby situation, of course, whenever we hear more, you'll get a full breakdown right here on Yahoo Sports Daily. But coming up next, Game 3 at the Stanley Cup Finals may have been the most weird, bizarre, drunk, fun, incredible, remarkable games that I have seen in a very long time on the ice. We'll break it all down coming up next.
Rubido's going to have to stand in there. He's going to take a lot of big hits because they're going to give up pressure.
Fake handoff from the 3, launches, got a man deep, caught, touchdown, New Mexico, Damon Street with the answer.
Let's watch, there's Rubido gets drilled and just, poorly timed on the defensive play by or Decius. Decius jumps and the ball's not even there yet, but a great play though for New Mexico.
Honestly, do you think you could have continued? Do you think if there was a minute left in the fight, you would have been okay? Meaning, sorry, a minute left in the round, not the end of the round.
So if you look back at it, I got the uppercut. No, for the people that know my fights, I've been dropped multiple times in different type of fights, in championship fights. And what I do is I get back up, and no matter how much time is left on the clock, I get back up and I end up winning.
What's it mean to you to see your squad still celebrated and embraced like this 40 years later?
It's pretty crazy, to really still see this, and they haven't been in the winning circle since 40 years. It's time that they put it together. 40 years of what this team that I played with, this is like the best team I played on in '86. I played on the '98 Yankees too, but this team here was a team that you just didn't want to mess with.
Felix Harper, 7 of 11 in the first half. The efficiency has been the name of the game for him so far this season. Handoff left side, down the near boards, Open space, and JT Stokes in for the touchdown for Fishers. And JT Stokes get a carry off the left side on the first play from scrimmage in the second half, and houses it.
Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final. 2 overturned goals to start the game. Mitch Marner records the fastest hat trick in Stanley Cup Final history. Carolina scores 3 back-to-back goals. First 4-0 comeback in Stanley Cup Final history. Double overtime. Game of the year. And it is really hard to disagree with that goalie because game 3, I call that the Stefan from SNL game. This game had everything. It had everything. It was bizarre. It was chaotic. It was high scoring. We saw a guy in Mitch Marner who Toronto couldn't get rid of fast enough because he never showed up in the postseason. All of a sudden have one of the best Stanley Cup final games in league history. This game was absolutely wild. This series has been so incredibly wild. We had double overtime in game 3. We had OT in game 2. We had it come down to the wire at the end of regulation in game 1. Do you think that this has been everything the NHL could have hoped for and more?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is what you hope for when you're a sports league. I mean, just before we got back on here, we were talking in the break about how amazing this run of playoffs and finals specifically has been with both the NBA and the NHL. And I think the one thing that we're missing is the fact that it looks like this could be a shorter NBA series of the finals. And I really want it to go a lot longer because the basketball has been so good. Well, the hockey has been so great that it feels like this could be a 6 or 7 game series. And it could be 6 or 7 games of just high intensity, of just dramatic moments, of just coming down to the wire. I mean, I still keep picturing game 2 where it seemed like the Canes were totally out of it by the end. And then all of a sudden, they start chipping away, get a couple of goals, to tie it at 2-2. And then the Knights go back up. And it looked like, okay, this is going to be the end of the night. The Knights are going to end up winning. And then boom, just before we end up hitting end of regulation, the Canes score, and then they score to win it in OT. I mean, that's exactly what we saw in game 3 as well, just the other side of the other side of the coin. And I think that's the beauty of this, is that you're seeing both teams have these moments and both teams are trading shots. It's not that one team is hot all the way through. It is one game after the other. We're seeing that ping pong effect, and that's what you want out of any kind of final scenario, whether it's World Series, NBA Finals, NHL Finals. You want to see this kind of drama. So yes, the NHL has to be happy. I feel like the NHL is getting so many more eyeballs on this series than maybe they had in years past. We'll see what the final numbers bear out at the end of the series. But this has been so entertaining. It has been so fun to watch.
It has been so fun. And to your point, there's been period momentum shifts. We saw that in game 1. Carolina went out to a 2-0 lead, and then Vegas seemed to, all the momentum kind of swung their way in the second period. Same thing with game 3. It was all the momentum was in Vegas's corner. And then all of a sudden in the third period, Carolina comes storming back. No hurricane pun intended there. So there has been period to period momentum shifts. There's been game to game momentum shifts. So I do think that just how competitive and back and forth and evenly matched these games have been, that is the blueprint for exactly what any league would want, not just the NHL, but I think every single league would want as back and forth and evenly matched of games as this has been, how dramatic they have been, how fun they have been to watch. Just look at that. That's all within the course of, less than 2 periods of gameplay. Look at all of that. Look at that swing from Carolina in the third period. That is 3 goals in less than 1 minute. Can you imagine being there in the building and feeling the electricity of that? Being a Carolina Hurricanes fan in the building for that game? I mean, you feel it. You start to give yourself hope after you've probably given up all hope going down 4-0 in the first 2 periods. I do think the only thing that the NHL would have asked for, like if they would have had a genie and were granted 3 wishes, the first 2 would be to have 3 games like this. I think the last one would have been just maybe more traditional hockey markets, like a Colorado Avalanche, Toronto Maple Leafs final, or, in Edmonton, New York Rangers final. Maybe some of these more elite brands with more household names and more traditional hockey markets where you see, these Canadian fans in the streets jumping up and down just the way that we're seeing New York Knicks fans doing the same thing at their block parties in the NBA finals. That would be the only, rewrite to the script that I'm sure Gary Bettman, the NHL commissioner, would have made. But all of that to be said, you are invigorating the excitement of non-traditional hockey markets, which also grows the game.
Yeah, it grows the game in so many ways. And I mean, even as we're looking at this tweet here, I'm thinking about the story of the Vegas Golden Knights this year. They have been so lucky this year. They weren't very good for a lot of the year. Fire their coach with 8 games to go, hire John Tortorella, a legend in his own right from other coaching stops that he's had before. And here Torts is he's only lost like 7 of the 28 games that he's coached since he's taken over. I mean, this has been just an incredible run. That's another storyline of a way that you can grow the game. You could say that it's that fascinating. You can have a coach who's that much of a difference maker. Again, the team hasn't changed, the players haven't changed, but just the guy who greases the wheels, so to speak. That's the one big change for this team to go on this magical run. And I think if you live in a city or in an area like a Las Vegas that, again, is not a hockey hotbed, so to speak, I think that just continues to grow the game. And the game has really grown there over the years because of the Vegas Golden Knights coming in the first place. These last 8 or 9 years, we've seen just how that fan base has certainly grown and has certainly adopted the team as part of the community. But with Vegas being such a transient city in terms of tourists coming in and out, I think this is a moment that you have tourists from all over the globe who are like, hey, there's a hockey game going on. Let me pay attention to this. I didn't know that hockey could be this fun. And now they're going off and enjoying the game themselves wherever their homes may be. So this is all a good thing. It would be nice, sure, to maybe see the Bruins or the Avs or some of these other, more traditional hockey cities be in this. But I'm here for it. I love this.
Oh, it's been an absolute blast. And, if you're Carolina, you come that close to stealing a game on the road. You had the opportunity to do to them what they did to you in game 1, and it just fell through their fingertips. So it's an absolute heartbreaker, but I just think these two teams are way too evenly matched for Vegas to just run away with it. They've all of a sudden found the secret sauce that it's going to be, Vegas in 5. But the Canes have a pretty big decision upcoming. They pulled their goalie, Frederik Andersen, after he gave up those 4 goals in the second period. Brandon Bussey came in, played incredibly well in relief before the unlucky bounce in double overtime. Welcome to hockey. Sometimes the puck bounces your way, and sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes it's just puck luck. In your opinion, Coley, should Carolina go back to Frederik Andersen, their starter for game 4, or has the backup earned a start in net?
Man, this is heavy. I do think that the backups earn the start. If this was like maybe a difference between game 1 and game 2, where this is the decision you have to make going into game 2, or if we're in an earlier period of the playoffs, maybe I say, you know what, Frederik's gotten us this far. He's a very good goalie. He just had a moment here, there. Let's stick with him. I think that's the case, but this is the final. This is you're playing for everything on the line. I mean, I see what Rob Brindamore says right there that Anderson's overall, he's been fine. He's been solid. Bus came in and was solid, and he does also say that needs to continue. He needs solid play from whoever is in there. When I'm reading that, I'm thinking that he's going to go with Andersen again in game 4. But I go with the backup. To me, you ride the hot hand. The backup, has been successful. I want to see more of that.
This is a decision I don't envy of Rod Brindamore, because I'm stuck between don't get cute with it and also ride the hot hand. With so much more breakdown to come. We'll see you tomorrow morning on Yahoo Sports Daily.